Hello and welcome to Focus on Liberia. Welcome and welcome to yet another edition of our program, Roundtable Africa. Welcome to Roundtable Africa, folks. Roundtable Africa comes on here 1 p.m. Eastern Time every Wednesday. Sorry, we missed last Wednesday because we have a gentleman that we needed to interview. But we are here now, and we want to welcome you to this yet another exciting edition of Roundtable Africa. Sekou Keller is here. Edward Amara is here. Your moderator, Anthony C. I'm here. Another interesting topic you might be wondering, of course, yes. What do we have? Peaceful protest, the power of the people after election. That is the topic that we have. And who we better have to discuss the topic other than the discussants of Roundtable Africa. Let me welcome Mr. Edward Amara. Edward, welcome. Another edition.
Thank you very much. I'm so happy. I feel elated being part of this wonderful show. I'm sounding way from the east, far away from the east, very close to Liberia and that of Guinea, Kailaon district. As I'm speaking, I'm not in Kenima today, but in Kailaon district, Lower Chiefdom. I'm really happy joining. And this is the district that we all started in Sierra Leone and ended. The district we all had our 2014 Ebola attack. I'm really happy being part of it.
Thank you so very much for joining us from all the way in Sierra Leone. Edward Amara is focused on Liberia, West African correspondent. Also, another discussant here around Table Africa is Mr. Sekou Keller. He's always joining us from Canada. Sekou, another edition. The topic also is interesting. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you, Anthony. Thanks to our viewers. I'm happy to be back this week, and today's topic is very interesting. We thank all our viewers that have been with us since we started this program, and today is going to be very interesting. This is a current contemporary issue, so I'm very happy to discuss this topic today.
Thank you so very much again, folks. I want to remind you, Sekou is a discussion here around Table Africa, along with his colleague Edward Amaram Anthony moderating. You heard it there. Our topic that we're discussing today: peaceful protest, the power of the people after election. As always, here at Roundtable Africa, we bring some critical questions, and the discussants try to answer this question as we discuss our topic. And so, question number one: what is peaceful protest? Many of you have been hearing this term peaceful protest, but what it is, you have not gotten the meat. You just been hearing the crumbs. They are here to give you the meat. Also, what is the difference between an anti-government riot and a peaceful protest? They will do an analysis. They will compare and contrast everything for you to understand what is the difference between a riot and a peaceful protest. Also, we want to know the causes of peaceful protest and a riot. What can make people to protest peacefully, and what can lead people to go rioting? Also, folks, we have what are the aims and objectives of organized peaceful protests? When people organize protest, there must be a reason. Some people don't have the right reason, but they are here and they will provide the answers. And finally, why peaceful protests failed recently in Liberia? That is the answer I'm waiting for. And if you want to know the answer, I guarantee you, Sekou is here. Also, Edward is here, and they will provide these answers. Gentlemen, let us get started here. We don't want to waste the time of our audience. Sekou, before I go into my questioning, what is this thing about protests? Lecture us a little bit, give us some perspective. Why do we have to be talking about this topic, peaceful protests?
All right. Thank you very much, Anthony. So I will give a historical background here. In the 19th century, Europeans colonized almost half of the world. They conquered Africa, Asia, North America, and South America, and they were in charge. And the colonial regime was brutal. It was about taking away people's culture, taking away their resources, taking away their land, and there were little freedom. So people were under a very tyrannical rule by the European power. So they had to speak out. They wanted their freedom. So for the first time, we saw this idea of peaceful protest going against a strong and powerful regime without arms, using moral persuasion to achieve the aim and objective. Mahatma Gandhi of India started it in 1932 in the salt protest. Then we saw it again in America during the civil rights movement. Martin Luther King went against the United States without arms, using moral persuasion to table the issues of Black America, and he achieved a lot by changing the rule. So basically, that's the history. People under a tyrannical rule, under misrule, under an unjust system, but they still want to effect change by using their voices and whatever they can without using violence against violence.
Thank you so very much. And Mr. Edward Amara, protest, a little bit of history, what's the essence? Talk to us. And Edward, you might want to chime in on the protest that went on in South Africa, talking about apartheid here. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, in addendum to what he's saying, democracy, one of the key aspects of democracy is protest. But protests give the individual the absolute right to express their sincere grievance against an institution like the government when they believe that the social contract that the ruling body signed with them is no longer being maintained. Let's take a common example like what we are saying. We all know that South Africa only became independent on our own in the early 1990s. Unfortunately, because we have what we call apartheid. Apartheid is just like the leadership of a few against the majority, and who have the intention to place their absolute autonomy over the majority. And apartheid came with its own segregation, like the black should be separated from white, the white should be given preferential treatment, and they wanted to create the blacks into Bantu communities to segregate them to ensure that they are not powerful, and they keep exploiting the economy of South Africa at the detriment of those who own the land. And when we see protests, we all know what happened in Soweto on June the 16th. These are some of the things that are so protest in essence here is part of liberal democracy. I think if you watch critically, during the pre-colonial system, you may not see something like protest because there was something like liberal democracy. I think it's more likely the Machiavellian principle, where you think the leader has the absolute power to decide whatsoever thing they decide. And the Machiavellian principle will tell you that it's better to pretend being good than to being good. And a leader who may want to maintain power must be prepared to act immorally. That is the such thing that we guarantee him. So this we are heavy-handed. But when it comes down to liberal democracy, as Kelly was carefully explaining, democracy, protest is part of it, because protest is meant to checkmate the activities of the government and to express the feeling of others. So these are some of the things. So you only came in because, like what was happening in South Africa, majority being ruled by the minority, and the minority violating the principle of social contract, and they try to deprive them for them. So when somebody is not treated fairly, expect them to protest.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Edward Amara. Folks watching us here, our topic for today is peaceful protest, the power of the people after election, and we want to welcome you to Roundtable Africa, where we discuss the issues that matter to the continent, taking it from a Pan-African kind of perspective, to provide a deeper understanding of who we are as a people and people from that continent of Africa. Protest is key. You listening to the discussion just gave you a little meat on the history of protest. My understanding of protest is to register your disagreement with something that is suppressive or oppressive, that is against your will. That is a protest. It can be done on local level. It can be even done in your home. It can be against your spouse. It can be against a nation. It can be against a tyrannical regime. Once you register a disagreement to any form of oppression or suppression, all right, any effort that is against your will, violating your rights, when you are registering your disagreement because you know what has been done to you is unacceptable, it is not right, it violates your right as a human being, that is protest. But we will be delving into these issues as we discuss here. Let's come to you, Edward, quickly here. Let's get started. The topic here is peaceful protest. So I'm asking the question, what is peaceful protest, Edward?
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Sear. I think the word peace, let us first start with peace. Peace is the absence of violence. we all expect absolute sanity, unity, cooperation, love, everything will be exhibited. That is what we decided is a peace one. So protest now is when they are saying, because you are joining a positive and a negative word to direct your grievance or to express what you are not adequately happy about. That is what they are saying. Because the word peace and protest, when you see it is just like an osmoron, it's going against itself. But they join it carefully together to express a feeling. Because peaceful protest, they have come peacefully, but they are doing something that is not sending an image of peace. So when we're talking about now protest here, is an act of a person expressing his or her grievance either against a government, a company of work, at home, or any other established social institution where people are there on cooperation and basis. That is one. So peaceful protests involve non-violence, an expression of one grievance that does not involve any violence act. And it must be expressed in a peaceful manner. That is why before ever a peaceful protest must happen, they must go through the police, since they are the state instrument protecting life and order. An ultimatum must be written, and an agreed date must be coordinated, and the police must be there to coordinate those affairs. And we are only expecting peaceful protesters to be carrying things like placards, expressing their views, their grievances, because in fact they are not coming to talk to you directly, but those placards will be shown.
But Edward, do we have to have the presence of the law enforcing authority for the protest to be considered as peaceful? What is the core of, of a peaceful protest? What should one be looking for to say this is a peaceful protest?
The one that involves a non-violent act. Okay. But legally, the police must be involved, because mind you, when you are doing a peaceful protest, there are riffraffs who are hooligans that are around, who may easily infiltrate the system and mismanage it and show you the other way. So the police must be around legally. The police must be around to protect the protesters and to even ensure that because when you are going on protest, you must.
But why, if the protesters are responsible enough and they are focusing on their non-violent action, do we still need to have the law enforcers there?
It's a matter of rule, not responsibility. It is a matter, I'm afraid it's a matter of rule, but not responsibility. The police must be there. They are there to maintain law and order. So going on peaceful protest, it is just like a player fouling an opponent player into the 18-yard box. It doesn't matter how harsh your foul may be on the player, but as long as you have broken the rule. Before ever you go ahead on your protest, you must make sure that the police are there, and the police are there to protect life and property. Anything may happen because you don't have control by the system. So legally, they must be there. They are the state instrument protecting it. Is there legally, they must be there. That is more, they must be informed in time, and clarification must be there, and it must be announced. At the end of the day, they have the right to go about doing it.
Thank you. Mr. Sekukala, I come to you here. Again, people have so many definitions. There's disagreement which protest is peaceful or not. So explain to us from your better understanding, what is actually a peaceful protest?
So like my colleague rightly said, when you say peaceful protest, you are trying to distinguish it from something. So peaceful protest basically is a non-violent resistance. So it's not just the demonstration on the street, it's a resistance that had different cells. So peaceful protest is a non-violent resistance against misrule and injustice. Misrule, leadership, doing things, what my brother said, they're bridging the social contract with the people. Because in democracy, it's a doctrine. We said, we choose you to be the best of the best among us to protect our interests. So when you break that contract, after election, we have the right to peacefully protest. That is in a non-violent way to register our disagreement. So that is even legal, and you don't need permission. We don't need soldiers. We don't need police. It should be as natural as anything. People should be able to wake up anytime to say we disagree with this policy and with this plan, the direction in which our government is moving. So a non-violent resistance against misrule and injustice is peaceful protest. The aim and objective is to effect social change. If it doesn't achieve that, then there is a problem. because the peaceful protest has to achieve one thing only, that's social change. Something must change from the day the protest began until the day it ends. There's something that's been achieved. So the reason why the peace is there is to distinguish it from outright rebellion against the state. It's very different.
But Sekou, Edward was making a point that it is necessary for you to have security present because there might be deviant, as we've seen in most protests or some protests. So he's saying that you must have the police or any other law enforcement authority present so that should things go out of hand, they will be able to maintain order and order, to maintain law and order. So is it that manions the presence of state security, we don't have a peaceful protest? Do we must or have to have them before it can be considered as peaceful?
Personally, I disagree. Mm-hmm. When you have peaceful protests, the protesters should organize. Peaceful protest is an organized protest. They even create their own security to protect the protesters, to provide food, to make sure people are doing the right thing, to make sure they are having the right placard. Now, using police or state security sometimes is an excuse for the state itself to disrupt the protests. Because when these armed people come around, they come with intimidation. They intimidate the people. I think there is no need for police or army when people are protesting. As long as the protest is not a riot. When there's a riot, then police can now come in. We'll come to riot later on. But when there's riot, then we need police and army. But as long as the protest is peaceful, I don't think citizens need army and police all around to intimidate the people on the street. Protesters are the ones who should assure the society that they will be able to protect the people. They will provide security for themselves to protest. Because the idea here is to remove intimidation so that the people can speak freely. And we know wherever there's police and army, there's always going to be that intimidation.
But Sekou, this is what I've seen. I've been part of protests. I've been a protest organizer. I have been a leader in organizing a protest, communicating with the security, the state authority, or the city authority, alerting them that, hey, we will be gathering at this place for so and so reason. We go about communicating it. And sometimes, depending on the nature of the protest, they assign you a location. Are you saying that all those things not necessary in as much as it is guaranteed under the Constitution that it is your right to assemble at all times? Because that's why our Liberian Constitution said, for example, that at any time you can gather. It does not make reference of you seeking any permission from any authority. That makes it legal, right? Is that what you're saying?
In every democratic state, peaceful protest is part of the dividend of democracy. You don't have to even. Yeah, there are states that say you have to first inform the police that you assemble at a particular location. There are those formalities. But in reality, you don't have to inform the state that you want to protest. You should protest at any time you feel dissatisfied. You can protest anywhere. The reason why they are bringing all these laws to say you have to inform the police is because they want to minimize the impact as much as possible. That's what they are trying to do. I participated in the joyful protest last year here in Canada. There were about 6,000 people. There was no single police. I didn't see one policeman in uniform. We went from one street to the other. We were organized. We had our placard. We moved from street to street. All the major streets in my city. No single police followed us. There was no riot police. Okay, because the Black Lives Matter already registered that this is what we want to do. These are the streets we are going to occupy. And the protector, we have people wearing certain uniform and more to make sure we are protected. So there was no need to have police intimidating people. For me, it's really unnecessary. The only reason we are having a lot of police security around is because there is this mistrust between the people and the government.
And Edward, let me come to you here. I know you're making the point that there's a need for security officers or the police, for example, to be there because you don't know what others are going to do, and we have seen it in some cases. My question is, does it have to be that way? Because like he explained, they had their protests, there were no police, because Edward, here's the thing. Sometimes the protesters who are angry about a particular thing for which they are protesting, they see the law enforcement authority as part of the state. that they are protesting against. So when they see them, it even elevates their anger and frustration. Sometimes that's where the clashes start. So do you still maintain that it's necessary to have police presence?
Well, I have no reason to back down, though I carefully listen to most of what you have explained, and I may in some way agree with what you are saying. But we are dealing with contemporary issues here, but under different prevailing circumstances. As he had rightly explained, it may happen into Canada because perhaps the police have been serving into that capacity, and they have monitored protests on numerous occasions and have seen that it have gone peacefully without any other interference. But can you just use a case study for Africa, any part of African countries? We all know that we have hoodlums, we have hooligans, we have different people who are around. And mind you, the police are only going to be informed, and the grievances of those, the aim and objective of the protest is going to be registered, and the police are only going to be there on neutral basis. And a protester who knows what he or she has actually go will not see a police. They will only see a police as a state instrument, but protecting law and order, meaning the police has the right to protect themselves, he has the right to protect the laws of the state, and he also has the right to protect the protesters. And most of the time we have seen different people stealing the occasion of the real intention of the protest. That is why in Africa, all contemporary protests demand that there must be a police present to ensure that the protests do not escalate into another thing different. We have seen people on protests, they went on rioting, because protest does not involve any riot act. But we have seen a lot of protesters becoming rioters at the end of the day. So to minimize the damage, that is why it is always almost advisable for police to be present. I have participated in other protests like student demonstration where I think we do not even need to go on a legal aspect. But immediately you are out as a student from college going to protest or in university, you may see others who do not even belong to it. They will infiltrate the protest and try to infect the entire system. So that is why it is almost always advisable for the police to be around, but the police should be playing a neutral role. They should be standing on the fence to ensure that nobody else is definitely involved. But for African context, I am afraid, but I think it is absolutely necessary.
Thank you. I think I like the way you call it. It is advisable, but I don't think it should be demanded. Gentlemen, I'm going to push you to the wall here. This is a Pan-African kind of forum here. So put on your Pan-African hat. Pre-colonial period, when there was no democracy in Africa, was there any form of protest? Because from my research, we start seeing this thing called protest when the colonials came, and later on brought democracy and forced it on us. We accepted it, and all of a sudden, there's a protest. Was there any protest prior to colonialism in Africa? Sekou, you go first.
Yes. Now, African history are always divided into two. The pre-colonial Africa, which is the imperial period where we had the empire, the empires and the kings. Then we have classical Africa, which I consider to be Kush and Kemet, which were the classical period of Africa, in ancient Egypt and Sudan, which is part of our heritage as Black people. So there we had protests. The first protest in the war was done in around Sudan area against the pharaohs. Why? Because there was this system of governance that the pharaohs introduced. The people were kind of spectators in their own country. They could not participate in anything. They were, I don't know, they call it feudalism, where the kings control the resources, then they have some of the law that are controlling the land. And the people were just working, laborers, and they were not having anything. So they rose against the state. They were only, in fact, it turned into riot. And to a point, they even went and dethroned the pharaoh and took over. For 6 months, only the people were ruling, there was no king. Eventually, they settled it with peace. They could not use the army. They sat down and had discussion. Various ethnic groups had to come, every chief had to come and agree before a new king was installed. And then there was, from that time, they changed the system. The people got certain rights. The people were allowed certain rights. They could go into the army. They could refuse to go into the army. You could not force them. Now, coming to pre-colonial Africa, now down to West Africa and our kingdom, we had issues in the Ouagadougou Empire, the Ouagadougou Empire, which is the Ghana Empire. There was similar thing that went on, but we cannot call it riot. It was actually people going against the new system, because Islamic system was coming in, and there were some people who were resisting that the elite were embracing a new kind of religion. So they kick against it. But there has never been a real protest in recorded history in pre-colonial Africa where the people rose against the state and staged a revolution to a point of changing government or changing a major law in the state. That has not happened. And one of the explanations given by scholars is because the kings in pre-colonial Africa were not really oppressing the people. Then they were not involved in corruption. They were not people who were taking resources from their kingdom to a Western country or anywhere. In fact, those kings are people who did not even travel. They always stayed within their kingdom. So the people had right to their land. The people could farm. The people had their traditional right. They could register their malcontent, their disagreement with their priest. So there was this kind of organized system that did not permit revolution because there was no oppression. Revolution and protest come when there is oppression and when there is misrule.
Thank you, Sekou. And move on the opposite side here a little bit so that you can get in the middle. Yeah, thank you. Not too much. Yeah, right there. And Edward, this is the piece I want you to give our listeners here. I am a traditional or village boy. So let's come to our villages. We have our chiefs. Do you know of any history or have you heard where there was any riot against any chief because of any misrule or oppression or anything in our traditional history?
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. C. I think I specialize in history in my school.
Okay.
I think my first degree is history. You see, watch out the dichotomy between pre-colonial system and colonial system. When we look at the pre-colonial system, that is where we describe those who led by then as king and queens. And they look at them as the gospel truth of the land. They dispense the facts. There was nothing that challenge. And they have what they call one-party system form of leadership, where each and everybody work in the interest of the land. One-party system of leadership have a kind of philosophy of socialism or communism, because everybody is working for the state.
Right.
But I don't dispute the fact that these kings and queens, we are not tyrannical in nature. Most of them, we are very tyrannical in nature. They can even lead their subject with heavy hand. But they have the poorer society, which was serving as a check and balance between the kings and his subordinates. And this poorer society was so respected as it is still respected in contemporary Africa. Because in Africa, what is actually changing now, we have seen most of our tradition becoming culture and our culture becoming tradition. But still, we have seen that the poorer society have never been touched. And the poorer society was there to checkmate the powers of the king or queen into that particular land. So people still have their grievances, but they register their grievances through the council of elders. And this council of elders, we call the king or queen and put him to order. There are in certain cases they can even ask you to resign. That is why kingship is by inheritance. So there was still people who are still leading against their subordinate, but they have a kind of moderate or well-established way where it can be respected. And there was no cultural infiltration. Because Protestants started coming into Africa. Democracy is not part of our knowledge. It's not part of our tradition and culture. Democracy is something copied from the West who came with it. And one of the aspects of democracy were protests. Before this time, people have their grievances. They table those grievances through the Council of Elders, and they call the paramount chief, who in most of the tradition in Africa, that paramount chief had to be elected through the poorer society, conferred power like most of the tribes into Sierra Leone here. So if anybody has grievances, those complaints can be tabled. It is just unfortunate and quite amazing that because our leaders choose, because you have to respect the social contract. When you choose to go against these people will come again, but they have the means to table it. But mind you, and because of our copying of Western culture, the increase in our population or in our demography, you must expect different things to happen. But I have to admit to the fact that protests never happen. But people still express their grievances through established units, and those established units we call the king or queen to order. And because it is regarded as sacred, holy, it should not be touched, because even the king or queen is not above it. So that was more or less the constitution. So you are compelled to obey, or you will ask to resign, or any other way.
Thank you, folks. Focus on Liberia, Roundtable Africa, a program like no other, where we go into the issues from a Pan-African perspective. Welcome. If you are just joining us, you are watching Roundtable Africa. Here we have Mr. Edward Amara. He is a discussant, and Mr. Sekou Keller is a discussant. I do moderate here, and these smart guys always provide the answers to the questions that I always bring for them. Gentlemen, let's get started here. And Sekou, let's start with you this time. What is the difference between anti-government riot and the peaceful protest? Because sometimes people start to tell us, hey, there's a difference between peaceful protests and a riot. So lecture us or tell us. And there's this word demonstration sometimes they throw in there. Is there any different? Let's hear from you.
Yes, thank you very much. Now, from our first definition, we said peaceful protest is a non-violent resistance against misrule and injustice. Now, a peaceful demonstration or a peaceful protest can sometimes turn into riot or demonstration. So a riot or demonstration is when people decide to use force by destruction of property, disrupting government system in order for them to achieve their goal. If they do it peacefully and then it doesn't work, either government attack them or they decide to just go on and vandalize property, go on rampage on the street and destroy, cause civil unrest, that would be considered a riot. Because one people, private property and then public property that have been destroyed, things have been vandalized, then it's no longer a peaceful protest, because that's going to cause it. The damage will be so much that the focus will now be on the damage and not really the message of the people who are protesting. So that's the difference. In 2008, research was done by a group of professors in the U.S. So by Professor Stephen Maria and then Erica Chenoweth. So the article is called the Why Peaceful Resistance Works, 2008. That's when the article was published. So they said throughout the 20th century, they tried to register all the major peaceful protests and riots around the world. They tried to compile everything and see which one was successful and which one was not successful. So they found out that 53% of peaceful protests were successful. 53% of peaceful protests were always successful in all countries and all continents. Then riot only succeeded like 25%. Only 25% of riot or violent demonstration actually succeeded. So they discovered that riot or violent protests always end up with repression, because the state is going to repress, they're going to go against the people. They will put in some mechanism that will make it difficult for those people to succeed.
So Sekou, that begs the question, what is the advantage, or if you like, advantages of peaceful protest as compared to a riot?
Right. So a peaceful protest, you have a lot of support. When you call people and say we are having a non-violent peaceful protest, old people will come, children will come, because they know they will not be harmed. They will know that they were going to register their grievances peacefully. So you have a lot of following. Two, you have a lot of support. Many institutions are willing to donate because they know this is a noble cause. People are fighting for injustice. There's not going to be bloodshed. These people are not there to terrorize the society. They are only there to make an effective change, social change. So people are willing to donate. So it's very easy for peaceful protest to gather support, grassroots support, and have even financial support. Now, a riot, many people don't want to be associated with violence. Many people don't want to be associated with the destruction of property. So you have very little following when you are destructive, when you want to put in violence. And then also, government institutions are likely to bend, to succumb to peaceful protest. Why? Because of the moral persuasion. The soldiers, the army that have been used to terrorize people, when they see that these people are peaceful, that the issue these people are tabling is for the good of the whole nation, by and by, you will see people defecting from the government, trying to say that these people are right. But when you use violence, the answer will always be violence. And the government now will have a reason to say, you see, these people are vandalizing properties, and then the focus will be changed. Because public opinion matters when you are in this game of protest. Public opinion, media, and all these things matter. So you have to win. You have to defeat the state in that area. So in order for you to do that, you have to use moral persuasion, not violence.
Thank you. Edward, same question. What is the difference between a peaceful protest and a riot? Then they look at, what is the better option in terms of registering dissent, in terms of registering a resistance to some form of oppression or suppression by any group of people? Will it be riot or will it be a peaceful protest, and why?
Thank you very much. I just clinically listened to what Mr. Kelly carefully explained. Let me tell you one thing. When you are saying anti-government riot, anti means against. And the government knows that when it is an anti-government riot, it means the protesters, the demonstrators, or the rioters are coming against the government and state institutions. That includes the police, the soldiers, even media houses that are government owned, or anybody who is a personnel of the government can easily be attacked. Because as long as you are working for the government or you work with the government, they still consider you to be a collaborator or a perpetrator of what you have been accused of. So these people come against state institutions. Their aim is to destroy, and they do not seek any contest. And when they set eyes on the police, instead of them cooperate, they will confront the police. So a riot is a kind of carefully demonstrated act against state institutions that are legitimate to lead or to rule, because I'm seeing Africans more ruling instead of leading. So I don't want to describe them as leaders. We more have rulers in Africa. It is because the social contract have been breached, as we are saying, and these people want to come against them at all costs, either by hook or crook. You must compare or accept our dispensation or our grievances and act on them. On the part of peaceful protest, people have already known that you have violated the social contract that is signed to them. But they do not want to take too long to register one right. They want to use the other way around to express their grievances. That is where you see them coming with placard and other things, but absolutely non-violent. They do not intend to destroy any life and property. They do not have the intention to attack any government personnel. They do not have the intention to destroy any government vehicle, neither to even attack any media houses previously been accused or associated with government. So people who come out for peaceful protest, that is why you see more people involved into peaceful protest than anti-government riot, because you must have people who have radical mentality, who are ready to sacrifice their life, irrespective of the available state instrument that may be directed against them. They are well determined, and their intention is to destroy. They may loot, destroy life and property. So
Edward,
that's the difference. That's the difference. That's the dichotomy.
Yeah, Edward, let me challenge you here.
Yes.
You are a political strategist.
Yes, sir.
Of an opposition political party that is being suppressed with tyranny from a suppressive regime. They've tried peaceful protests. It didn't work. The government is not listening. Your other option becomes a riot. Will you go for it, given what Sekou gave us here? He said there was a research done on numerous peaceful protests and riots, and they realized that 25% of riots were successful. So it is a tool. It works. Will you advise that, and why?
Well, brutality is needed when things are complicated, but one shouldn't take it as a garment of life. We have seen what's happened in the wake of the Arab uprising in 2010. When we have seen Hosni Mubarak and others, you talk about Ali Ben Ali of Tunisia, you talk about all the African countries, people like Morocco, you talk about Egypt. Up to now, that is the same problem that we are facing in the Middle East, that is Syria. So it's like, people have tried it on numerous occasions. It doesn't mean that peaceful protest, a violent riot or demonstration does not actually succeed. It succeeded little while ago in Mali. I also succeeded without that IBK or Ibrahim Abubakar wouldn't have been a gun person. Without demonstration or anti-government riot, Umar Bashir wouldn't have been somebody that is no longer in power. And we're also seeing that if Chad is also about to go on that. So there are registered successes for peaceful protest, but for anti-government riot, but it is almost always advisable for one to embark on peaceful protest because we want to rewrite the narrative of what has been happening to us. We need to do a careful research about what has been happening into our history. We change this narrative and try to register good headlines. But unfortunately, if the government can't listen to you, you go away. They are that if you don't quit power, power will quit you. And if you fail to quit power, you expect the rioters to come across you.
Thank you. Again, folks, you are watching Roundtable Africa here, a focus on Liberia. Sekou Kela is comfortably seated. They are answering the tough questions as we discuss this very important topic, peaceful protest, the power of the people after elections. And gentlemen, from what I'm gathering from you, yes, riot works at times, but peaceful protest is always advisable. It is the best tools looking at record historically. And gentlemen, I may add this, I don't remember the year, but it's in Madagascar. Didi Rashiraka was in power. He ruled for so long, they went into the election and Mark Ravomanana, a businessman, went against him. Mark Ravomanana won the election, but at the end of the day, he tried to change his mind. He didn't win the election. But the military, when the citizen got in the street to register that, look, you didn't win the election, we're not going to allow it. He wanted to use the military. But because that protest that was organized by the citizens of Madagascar was very peaceful, the military, Sekou was saying earlier, saw the picture of the citizens and said, no, we can't go against our own people. After all, they're not violence, they're not coming at us, they're not destroying anything. So the military went and joined the citizens. And then Didi Rashiraka had to leave power. Mark Ravomanana became president of Madagascar. But when I checked later on, they said he didn't do too well. He was a business guy. Maybe he got into power and he wanted to do business with power. You don't do business with power. You use power to fulfill the social contract of people. Roundtable Africa, focus on Liberia. Gentlemen, we're going to take a little break and we will come back. Folks, stay with us. We have your comments to read also. Don't go anywhere. We will take a short break right here and we will be right back. All right, folks, we are back with you here at Focus on Liberia in continuation of our discussion here on the topic peaceful protest, the power of the people after elections. You know, during election, the people relinquish their power to those they elect and tell them this is a social contract. You must do well by us. And if they are not doing well, the people have it in their right to hold them accountable. And one of the ways to do it is through peaceful protest. But let's go into something. There are some people who were champions of nonviolence protests, as we call it in the books of history. Sekou, let me bring you in. Let me share this. I see something here on the screen. Talk to me about it. What is this?
So from my left here, we have Beer Rustin.
Yeah, so Beer Rustin.
Rustin, actually, people don't know, he actually preceded Martin Luther King. He was the champion of nonviolent protest. He was with Gandhi and he brought the philosophy eventually, and then Martin Luther picked it up. He said, we need in every community a group of angelic troublemakers. So what he's saying here, angelic troublemakers are people who will disrupt the system, but with good intent. The intention is not to sabotage the state, to destroy the state, but to disrupt the system in order to repair it back. That's what you mean by angelic troublemakers. These are angels, but they are troublemakers in a sense that they disrupt a corrupt system in order to repair it. Because if you don't, if you keep on the status quo of corruption and recycling these politicians, and there is no disruption in the system, you will keep on having the same result. So you need disruption in order for you to have a positive outcome. Here we have Martin Luther King said, a riot is the language of the unheard. Now we talk about peaceful protests. It's been very effective and all that. But when people are peaceful, we find it many a time in Africa, peaceful protests that have been attacked. They have been as a tear gas. Some of them have been killed by repressive regime. So if you don't give the people an option to express themselves, the next you're going to have is riot. Because a human being is not allowed to express themselves, they are going to retaliate. So if you want a peaceful state, government should listen to peaceful protesters more, have dialogue with them, sit down with them, because these are civilized people. But if you refuse to take peaceful protests, then prepare for riot. And then after riot, prepare for rebellion. That's the mistake our leaders all will make. They take peaceful protesters as if they are terrorists. They are not terrorists. These are people that are building the state. These are people that are the moral fiber of the nation. Sit on round table with them, and then you will avoid riot, then you will avoid rebellion. But if you repress peaceful protest, prepare for riot, and after riot, prepare for rebellion. It's simple in mathematics.
And then finally,
here,
the one on the right.
He said, nonviolence is the answer to the crucial political and moral question of our time. The need for mankind to overcome oppression and violence without resorting to oppression, without resorting to violence and oppression. Now, Martin Luther King philosophy is very clear. We cannot go against a repressive regime that is having all the ammunition, go against them with the same oppression and killing. Then when we do that, it's going to be chaotic. Let's use the moral code. Let's use the moral suasion and go against them. Then we can have millions of people on our side. We cannot use violence to go against them, because we might either lose or they will look for good reasons to be able to annihilate us. So when you are in a situation where you do not have the power to win the war, then use a peaceful protest. If you think you can win the war, okay. But if you think you cannot win the war, you don't have the arm, then use peaceful protest and then defeat an oppressive regime. We've seen it around the world, and it's possible.
Edward, indeed, Martin Luther King remains a champion in the idea for nonviolence. You're listening to your colleague. What do you have to share about what Martin Luther King has taught us? And if you don't mind, you can chime in with something from Gandhi.
Thank you very much. We have what we call social rebels or positive radicals.
Mm-hmm.
And for you to infect a change into a particular system, you must have a social rebel or a positive radical. And we all know a rebel is somebody who goes against the system. You see, like Muhammad Gandhi, all of these things, they did their own protest peacefully, because I think the world was not as exposed as that of ours. And those who were actually leading a protest or institutions like that, we are more regarded, respected, and they look then like philosophers. They believe that anything that they say, their colleagues or those that they are leading must strictly go by them. Unfortunately, we are having contemporary issues that we are dealing with, where we are divided in opinion. By then, when you are seeing this, like the Nelson Mandela, he formed the party, ANC, that is African National Congress. He realized that the party that he was forming must speak for the South Africans. It was not speaking for a separated or an elite group into South Africa. We are entirely speaking on behalf of South Africa. During Muhammad Gandhi time in India, what was he doing? He was speaking for the Indians against the oppressive colonial rule. He did not come with his own Buddhism, Hinduism, or whatsoever partyism. He was speaking on behalf of only India. So that is why you are seeing, in situations like this, we almost always expect these guys to succeed. Unfortunately, why the state instrument, the police normally come across people like that now, it is because you are coming with party ideology, not national ideology. If a political party, like the political parties that we have in Liberia today, demonstrating against the way-led government, he or she is not demonstrating in Liberia's interest. They're demonstrating in the party's interest. And those other parties who may not sympathize or support their ideology, you may see they come across them. But they are doing it uniformly, like you're having a grand coalition. Everybody's coming against them. Even you see the police supporting them. You see the soldiers supporting them. You saw what happened in Mali when IBK was against the intention of the people. People came and demonstrated against them. But look at what the army did. They came in single power for themselves. But look like what happened in Egypt. When they were demonstrating against Hosni Mubarak, we saw the military coming in. They took over and handed power over to a civilian-led government until another election was conducted, though Musi won and he was described as a Muslim Brotherhood party because they never wanted Sharia law. They're flushing out. So most of this Muhammad Gandhi, you talk about Nelson Mandela's, and other strong people succeeded by then because it was a national cause. It was not an individual or just an elite or another social group formed against the opinion of the state. That is why it must be a national cause.
Thank you so very much. Again, folks watching us here, this is Roundtable Africa. Here at Focus on Liberia. We are here every Wednesday. Thank you for joining us. Gentlemen, let me do something here quickly. 2 questions. And you go first, Sekou. What causes peaceful protests and riots? And I also want to know what are the aims and objectives of organized peaceful protests. Go for it.
Yes. So basically what causes peaceful protest, I think we've mentioned it earlier, we're talking about here injustice, misrule, and mistrust in political leadership. Now, injustice is when every society is formed around a just system where people can have fair hearing, people can have a peaceful environment to be able to strive. Now, if the state does not guarantee that, then the people have the right to protest. Now, misrule, when people are entrusted with political office, public office, they are there to protect the interests of everybody. But they think they have hit a jackpot. They think by being in that political office is a jackpot for them. They enrich themselves, their surroundings, and maybe their ethnic group. So when they do that, they betray the national interest. Then the people have the right to protest. Riot happens when the state refuses to listen to peaceful protesters. Whether we like it or not, peaceful protest is in the DNA of everybody. Actually, if you and your wife in the house, you protest. She does something you don't like, you actually don't want to be confrontational, you change your mood, you protest. Okay, your wife see the way you do certain things, she don't like it, she don't want to attack you physically, she will put on certain action, either your food delay or something happen, she will stage a peaceful protest. You will know that something is wrong. You see, it is when the peaceful protest is not addressed that a metamorphoses into riot. Then when you get to the riot stage, there's danger. So, but our leadership, they always see the riot. They always see the last stage. They do not see when the thing is building. When people come on the street and they begin to peacefully protest or on social media, listen. Because if you don't, that will lead to riot. That will lead to chaos later on. So you don't allow the monsters to grow. Once certain opinion begins to form around something in your country, as a progressive leader, whether on social media or on the radio, you see public opinion building around something, take action. That's how progressive leaders work. But you sleep and say, man, I don't care. I have the army around me. No, when the day comes, those army will turn against you. When the time comes, the entire people singing for you, they will turn against you. Don't joke with peaceful protests. It's capable of turning the more tyrannical state. It's capable of bringing it on his knees. So oppression, misrule, and bad leadership causes protest and peaceful protest. When peaceful protest is not allowed, then riot is coming.
Thank you so very much. Brilliant answers there. Let me come to you. And before Edward can come in, this will be the final question. And I want all of you to stick around because this one, I have something to share. Why peaceful protests failed recently in Liberia. I followed those protests. I have something to share. But before we get to that question, let Edward Amara address this question. Edward, what are the aims and objectives of organized protests? And there's something that was said earlier that I want to really bring. You said earlier, look, when the peaceful protests were organized by Gandhi and Martin Luther King, it was a nationalistic cause. It was now more of a political cause. That was issue that were affecting the entire citizenry, especially the oppressed, the weak, and the vulnerable. And so he went to that. And so because of that, he got so much support. It was not something of a political stunt. Is that something we can learn from today also?
Absolutely. I think if it is just unfortunate that we young people in Africa today, we are not reading. Because had we been reading carefully, taking revelation or what, learning practical example for those who have established. Why do you think Muhammad Gandhi succeeded in his protest? Why am I a protester today? I'm not succeeding. You will understand that we are fighting a national cause, not an individual cause. So we can copy brighter examples from that. So we need to revisit those books. The careful history of Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King, Muhammad Gandhi, and a lot of others, like Wallace Johnson and others into Sierra Leone who did those peaceful protests. Do you understand that it was a national cause? It was not a party ideology. It was not a kind of elite ideology. That was why they succeeded. And even during those times, if somebody does something that is not in concordance with the intention of the protest, it is the ringleaders who try to even put you to order. But now we are seeing the ringleaders supporting violence against established state instruments. That is not what they are there for. Then coming towards the aim. The aim of a peaceful protest is to change the system or to stop the system continuing. Either you change your attitude or they change you. That is the aim. Is it just a long-time goal? When we are talking now about the objectives, what do you think? People may be like it could be possible that even at home, your wife is protesting against you because you are not living up to the responsibility as a father. It could be like in time of payment of fees, taking care of your child of your children's responsibility, or even being loyal into the marital home. And when it comes to the government, we sign social contract with them. You said you are going to provide us with free education, or we are going to live under a free and fair atmosphere. We will not be intimidated, molested, or harassed. My freedom cannot be seized just after I have spoken. These things are there. And you promise corruption-free government, and now you are involved into corruption, embezzlement. You are leading us unscrupulously. You are not going to institute favoritism, nepotism, tribalism, sectionalism, you name them. Embezzlement will not be the order of the day. The police will be state neutral. We have the police as only neutral being, but most police agencies today, they are state instrument, oppressing the already oppressed. They are serving to suppress them. You see peaceful political parties standing against the government, speaking in the interest of you do not see cooperation. I hate our African democracy today, especially our parliamentarians. They are more or less backbenchers, listening to the ideologies of the political party in power, collecting brown envelopes, and forgetting what they have been elected there for. So we are expecting a free and fair objective, but the objective should be carefully demonstrated.
Thank you so very much, gentlemen. You are on point here, and I think our audience are loving the discussion. Let's go to their comments, and then when we come back, we will find the answers to this one. Why peaceful protests failed recently in Liberia? I got some answers for you folks, so you want to stick by. Let's read some questions here, gentlemen. Some comments here. Let's start from the beginning. This gentleman, he said, thank you. Protest is coming from the form of government called democracy. And then he writes again, he said, mumbocracy is also part of protest. He writes again, he said, there are no such thing as peaceful protests. Let's hear from Quay Wesley. The police are not needed. They are only to protect people's right to peacefully protest. Their ability to protest and petition your government is the oxygen upon which democracy depends. All right. Speaking to this person, recheck your facts, please. Somebody he's talking to. Okay, these guys are having going back and forth on that. Let's hear from Aliu V. Samba. Protestation in Africa in the absence of the police, he meant to say, may likely end up in serious destruction. The people of Canada are more conscious. He's right. He said, well, in Africa, when police not there, there'll be trouble. It's different from what happened in Canada. They are more of a conscious group of people. I have a disagreement there. Domestication or rioting, I think he meant to say demonstration and rioting in the process in which people turned violent and lost respect for the rule of law. The year from Masakwa again, yes, now he corrected him, said that thank you for doing that. The year from Mustafa Kona, hey, Mr. CEO, you need to bring Usman Toure from Gambia to this show. Sekou, I think that one is for you. I will let you to comment on that later on. Let's hear from Iziananta again. Slave agents are everywhere. Africa is in a deep problem. Two brothers claim to be Pan-Africanist, I think he meant to say, are coof themselves, I don't know what he meant, into enlightenment, which, when it comes to differentiating politics in Africa, you have yourself a good day, man. This gentleman, I have to respond to him this time. I have to respond to him. Anytime he comes here, all he does is put this show down. I reach out to him. He said he has another brother who can better do what we are doing here. So I say, give me the brother contact. We will bring the brother here. We can have a separate show for the guy. He won't do it. And he comes all the time. And all he does is make comments to justice, or denigrate what we're doing here. And that is unacceptable. And if he continues that, I'm going to block him. And I'm tired of this nonsense from him. Mustafa Kenneth, he writes, if this is Roundtable Africa, then bring the young African advocacy. Yes, and you people need to come. We don't know everybody. That is why the program is here for. It's a platform. You've seen it. Send us message. You want to come? Sekou will welcome you. Edward will welcome you. Focus on Liberia will welcome you. Let us participate in this thing. If you can do it better, reach out to us. Like the brother who's saying all those things, he was just coming and leaving and making all kinds of comments. So I reached out to him. And he promised that he would give me this brother contact who he said can better do this. He's yet to communicate with me with that brother contact. I even make a follow up, he will not follow up. This is all they do. This is the only show that discusses Africa, so it should not be focused on Liberia. No, Focus on Liberia is the platform. The show here is Roundtable Africa, where we discuss the issues of Africa. So even on BBC that is not African, they have a show specifically on Africa. So I don't know what you're talking about. No, guys, before you speak, sometimes you need to put on that taking care. Masakwa here again. We are not succeeding in our peaceful protest because Liberians, I think he meant, are not consistent in their quest. Gentlemen, Sekou, starting with you because somebody was trying to communicate something to you. What you make of the comments?
So somebody said peaceful protest is not possible in Africa because it always results into riot, and the Canadians are more conscious. I disagree. There is this myth that Africans are not capable of doing things in a civilized way. This myth is created by this bourgeoisie in Africa, these leaders that want to look for every opportunity to oppress the people. I'll give you one example is the NSAS protest in Nigeria last year. Nigerians were protesting against a police unit called SARS. This police unit brutalized young people. When they see you with laptop, they say you are an internet fraudster. When they see you well dressed, they say, how do you make your money? If you drive in a very beautiful car, they can harass you on the street. So Nigerians came on the street to protest that how we can walk freely in our country. The protest went on for days and it was very peaceful. In fact, to a point, they went to a place in Lagos called the Lagos Toll Gate, Lekki Gate. As the Lekki Gate, it was a very powerful gate. They decided to protest there all night in the morning. Guess what? The army and the police decided that they will go and protect them. And they went in the night, in the middle of the night, they put out the light and chased away international media and opened fire on them and killed hundreds and hundreds of people. And after that, there was blackout. The media, the government refused to allow any media to report it. So tell me now, who is uncivilized? Is the government or the people? The people wanted, they made a simple request, and this brutal police unit. That's all we want. And the protest was peaceful. But when they started killing, when they shot people at the toll gate, the Lakey toll gate massacre, then it became a riot. People then started rioting, attacking the King Palace, attacking government institutions. Why? Because the government started it. So my problem here is that the problem is the government. It's our government that are terrorizing the people, but not that the people are always willing to peacefully assemble and register their disagreement. We've seen it all over the continent, including Liberia.
Sekou, I couldn't agree with you more, so I won't add anything. Edward, anything you want to say to respond to our viewers who have taken their time to comment?
Just in the minutes, I think as he rightly said, it does happen, and we have the capability of doing protests into Africa without the police intervention. All we need is a government that respects our constitution, a government that knows that peaceful protest is part of democracy. It is an element of democracy and it's part of good governance. So people have the right to express their grievances without being attacked by any state-led instrument. But it is because government already knows that or any government that knows that he or she is guilty of what the protesters are against. That is why they come across them. But if you know that you are not guilty, say you can only respond to things if the cap fits you. So it's just a peaceful one. We shouldn't even underestimate the capability of Africa not doing things that are good. All we need to do is to have responsible government who respect their social contract and the constitution that brought them to power and the people who give them that legitimate power.
Edward, I couldn't agree with you and Sekou, the gentleman who said that Africans are not conscious enough. There can never be a peaceful protest in Liberia. Really? This guy ideas might be twisted. Really? The 1979 riot, I don't think it was the protester who started the chaos. The chaos started because the state security moved on the people. That's how it started. In the very Liberia recent protests, or June 7 protests, they were peaceful. The protesters were very peaceful. It was organized. There was no single incident whatsoever. Even the one after that was scheduled and later rescheduled, it was not the peaceful protesters that started anything. It was the state security that came and used water cannon on them. Even at that, there was not any significant rioting that went on. So what are he talking about? We've seen protests here in the US. Everywhere in Africa, there have been protests. So no, he missed it, and he missed it big time. Gentlemen, let's come to our final question here, which is, and Edward, I want you to go first on this one. Why peaceful protests failed recently in Liberia?
Thank you very much. It is because from the organizers to the intention and those the protest was being staged against. In the first place, when you are talking about peaceful protests, it should be like an activist ideology where each and everybody knows that you are there to state it in the interest of the state. Peaceful protest should not come like a private group interest. It should be like a public group interest. It should be an idea that is embedded in nationalistic ideology. It should be something that is pragmatic. It should be things that is agreeable, and should be things that are seeking the interests of the people. It is not just when you want to succeed. Most of the protests that fail into Liberia, it is because of the person and perspective of the protesters. That could be one, and even the ringleaders. These ringleaders should be consultative. When you are doing a peaceful protest in Liberia, you must understand that you have established political parties into Liberia who may have sensed these things, who knows exactly, those political parties know exactly what the government has violated. And they know how they can cooperate with you because they have a chunk members of those protesters within it. You have established civil society members into Liberia. Consult them, because you are going to do a protest as the one that was led by Costa. It is something that is against an established government. You, as a civil society activist, must understand that you need the cooperation of equally different other political parties on ground, as long as perhaps established movement on ground do not have that power to enforce things that you are doing. But with their cooperation, they may come in. Now, another big thing is that we don't have independent police into Liberia. We must have a police unit that are free from the yokes of the state. Police who respect the idea that they have been paid from the consolidated fund. That it is those people's taxpayers' money that they are receiving. So those whose rights have been violated, they have the right to express their grievances without any threat, under any threat and fear. But we are having police bosses into Liberia, police units, or whosoever you name them, who are strictly sympathizing with the government. You have seen a lot of things have been happening, and people accuse police. And normally, Romo have some elements of truth. So most of these things fail. And above all, illiteracy. Because Liberia have one of the three greatest enemies of mankind. One of them is illiteracy, ignorance, and poverty. Liberia is a poor state. Most of them are illiterate. And most of them are even ignorant of the fact that they have the right to rise against their own elected government. How many of the electorate feel that they have the right to go against the we-are-led government if we-are-led government have violated them? You need to understand that you elected him into power to ensure that he services you very well. But if he fails to service you, those who fail to elect him and you who elect him have the right to come on street against him peacefully. But even when it comes to peaceful protest into Liberia, you still see partisan mentality, and peaceful protest that is meant in the interest of the people should not be embedded with any partisan mentality. But that is one. And poverty also is the greatest thing. You have seen on numerous occasions, established government officers can even bribe some of the protesters. Some ringleaders can even be given money overnight, and they will come now and go against the ideology of it. Ignorance, I was saying. People do not even understand that they have the right to stand up against their own elected government when that government violates the rights or the principle, the ideology, or the contract that is signed with them. So in simple, that is why poverty, ignorance, illiteracy, and the failure of the police to actually uphold the principles of why they were elected for. And from the ground root side, those who may want to organize peaceful protests to liaise with established institutions that are meant to checkmate good governance into the country. So when you liaise with these people, they may have better ideology, how you will demonstrate it. Say two good heads are better than one.
Thank you. Edward Amara there, a discussion here around Table Africa. Stay on the question, why protests failed recently in Liberia? Sekou, go for it.
Yeah, before I give a clear answer, I would like to give a historical analysis of the three major protests that took place in Liberian history, those that failed and why they failed, and those that succeeded and why they succeeded. So I will just mention three of them. The first one is the April 14, 1979. The protest led by Backup Matthew, is recorded in our history book as Riot, but I call it a peaceful protest against the sudden increase in the price of rice. So the people went on the street to protest and said, look, rice is our staple food, and you increase it to this amount, we want to register our disagreement. Now, a few days before the protest, they were threatened by the state not to protest. And they went ahead to protest, and government opened fire on the people. It became a riot. People looted, and that protest failed. When it failed, what happened? It changed. It gave birth to what we know now as the military coup later on in 1980. Now, the second protest that we know in our history is 2003, led by Bowie. The women of Liberia were sick and tired of the civil war between Chancellor government and versus the Led forces. They protested. People try to forget this very protest done by these women, but it's very, very crucial in our history. In fact, during the Accra Peace Agreement, some of them went there and even tried to naked themselves because they said, if you don't have a peace deal here, you are not leaving this conference room. Some of these women decided to naked themselves, and then in front of the official, they said, we need a peace deal here or nobody is leaving. They persuaded the authorities, ECOWAS, and everybody. So the Bowie-led protest in 2003 succeeded. It succeeded. And then we had peace. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf was elected. Now, Save the State protest, June 7, 2019, led by Costa and others. That protest failed. It was peaceful, but it failed. Now, why did one protest succeed and others fail? I would say, one, there's no clear-cut objective. The June 7 protest did not have a clear-cut objective. They went to the protest, they could not even hand in their
petition.
The petition. Some people were saying, no, you have to open my radio station, and that was not part of the petition. It was an anti-corruption protest. So they did not focus. There was no clear-cut objective. Two, they did not have the moral standing. If you are protesting against government, you are having a moral authority to do so. You cannot have people of the former government, the former corrupt regime, coming now to protest against another government. You don't have the moral standing to do so. So you are bound to fail. If you want to protest, on what moral ground are you standing? You cannot come from a United Party government and protest against CDC. You are not making any sense. It's not going to work because you were part of the people who destroyed the state in the first place. So there's a moral question there. Then the leadership were not trained. They were not trained. They think that protest is the same as the peaceful protest is synonymous to just demonstration. No, the demonstration you see on the street is just an aspect of it. There are many other cells that were not deployed. The media, the many other international media, bringing the attention of international public opinion, using different other methods to push the agenda. Because until the objective has been achieved, the protest has not succeeded. But we see the constant changes because the leadership were not trained. They were having different objectives. They did not have the moral standing. That's why it failed. And if that is not changed, protest will continue to fail in Liberia because we cannot unite against a former thief to protest against another thief. That's not a moral. That's not a very good justified fight. We cannot unite against somebody who have their own self-interest. They have their own agenda. Then they want us to unite around them to push them to where they want to get to, and not really for national interest, like my brother mentioned. So these are the issues we have in Liberia. We don't have clear-cut objective, and we have moral question. People who are organizing the protest do not have the moral standing.
Thank you, Sekou. And folks, I told you earlier, I have my own reason or explanation to give in providing answers or the answer to this question, why protests failed recently in Liberia. And I have them here. I'm going to give it to you. But before I do, we're going to take a commercial break. Here I focus on Liberia. If you are a business person or whatever you're doing, event that you want to promote it, you can send us your ad yet, and we will also be able to advertise it for you. So we are taking a few second commercial break. When we come back, I will be giving you the reason why protests fail in Liberia. You want to hear that? I have it. Stay tuned, folks.
Ladies and gentlemen, parents and guardians, here comes the biggest opportunity to send your kids to school. The Vision School System, located in PHU Zone Community, presents tuition-free school for a semester. A Vision School System, commonly known as Vision Academy, the entrance fees is just $350 Liberian, while registration fees are in different categories. Registration commences on July of this year and school kicks off September 2021. At Vision School System, commonly known as Vision Academy, you can pick up your entrance package for just $2,000 Liberian for nursery and $2,000 Liberian for K1 to K2. For first grade to grade 6, it's just $2,500 Liberian. The CEO for Vision School System, Dr. Emmanuel Dekie, sees this as a way of giving back to society. Don't miss this great opportunity. Vision School System, commonly known as Vision Academy, is located in PHU Zone Community. Take this opportunity serious and run there now. When you get there, tell them that Allegiant Media and Consultancy Incorporated sent you.
All right, folks, that was a commercial break there. That was a commercial break there. Thank you for staying with us, and we will continue with the broadcast here, and we are still finding the answer or answers to this very important question, why protests fail in Liberia. And I'm going to share with you my thoughts here. Why protests failed recently in Liberia. First, of talking about the recent protest, that protests were organized by political actors. Sekou was right. We have folks who served in previous administration, corrupt, now coming back to be the ones with moral voice. No, it can't work. It doesn't work that way. So what we saw in that protest that failed, the June 7 protest, was because we have political actors, we have political figures. Now, in the CDC, we had other political actors. It's a political party. So we have political parties, individuals, or political actors trying to go against another political actors on the issue of politics. It was pure politics. And so because the protests were politicized, it had to fail, and it failed. Now, another thing we saw is that there was some intention to bring this idea of some people trying to claim credit. That is why the protest also failed. You had some leaders who were among the organizers who wanted that credit to come to them. The protest should have been organized by civil society actors. Now, if you contrast that protest with that of Emmanuel Service, it is an issue-driven protest, a nationalistic issue which having to be the World Crime Court. Emmanuel Service is not part of any political party. Everybody knows Emmanuel Service to be an advocate for the World Crime Court. And so when he's advocating for World Crime Court, people know that he's advocating for the World Crime Court, and he asking political leaders to reason with him to establish this court. And so you may look at the fact that, oh, you may think that he's not been successful, but his protest has been peaceful. There has not been a time, in my opinion, where the state had come against him with heavy hands, as it happened in the second protest that were organized by the COP. So what you saw there was a civil society actor, an advocate who went to the people and asked them to own the protest. But the protest that we saw that failed recently, the one that came after the June 7, you didn't see the involvement of the civil society organization. And because in the first protest, Costa claimed all the credit, he was the guy that made it happen. What happened in the second protest? The political parties and everybody pulled back because this guy, anytime he had an opportunity to speak, he will ascribe or attribute all the credit of a peaceful protest at the time to himself. He was claiming all the credit. And now let's look at self-interest. Again, the man was promoting himself. He saw the protest as an opportunity to inject himself as the only conscious Liberian who is brave enough to go against this administration. He was promoting himself. So anytime you listen to him speak, you see him injecting himself as the guy to have organized a peaceful protest in the history of Liberia that brought together Liberia in their thousands and nothing happened. He continued to inject himself in the picture. He is the only one that has been able to do that. He failed to recognize the political party leaders that joined it. He failed to recognize civil society actors that joined it. He failed to recognize even individual citizens who saw the need to be part of the protest that was against a demonstration. He did not actually see that. And, so these are the reasons why even the second protest, people say, wait a minute, I don't want to be part of it. And another thing that happened is messaging. Who are the messengers? What kind of messages you sending out? Because if you remember, Sekou, the second protest, the one after the June 7, they say this is a we are calm down campaign. You don't do that. Even if that is your goal, you have to be strategic. You can't be going against or be having a protest that is intended actually to register a disagreement to the government in power, and you are saying we're coming to take you down. Of course, that government will take action to protect. No one gives out power easily, so that's what happened. So the messaging there was very poor. It was wrong. The messengers were the wrong messengers. All the messengers, for the most part, were people that were either in other government or defending other government or even defending the very government. And another reason it failed was that the CDC government, there are people in the government that are very disappointed by their own government, but yet they chose to what? Support their own devil. Even though they saw the corruption, even though they see that they're not taking pay, they're just crying in their homes, they're complaining to their friends. They had an opportunity as citizens of a state to stand up for what was wrong. They said, no, I can't do it. I have to be party discipline. So some of them decided not to join the protest, but to undermine the protest. These are the reasons why protests fail in Liberia. Sekou, I don't know. What do you think?
Absolutely. I think you gave a lot of detailed explanation that's very, very important, especially to the issue where they were not really sure the objective were not clear, whether it was we are stepped down or it was about corruption or it was about certain targeted individual in the government should resign. There was nothing was clear. Some even were even there for every coastal radio to be open. That's why they were protesting. Okay, so we don't understand what's the objective there. So there was this conflict. You are very correct. It was politicized. That's a very good point that you made. It was politicized. All the people we saw in the front there were all people from other political parties. They were trying very hard to score political points. Yeah, political point. It was not about the people. It was not about corruption. It was scoring political points. So when you do that, you fail. Martin Luther King was not scoring a point for Democrats or Republican. It was about Black people. About social justice. Gandhi wasn't fighting for certain PJ party. No, it was about the downtrodden, the people. So we don't have the activists we have today are political underdogs. We don't want people like that. We want activists who are clear-headed. Emmanuel Save, whether you like him or not, you believe in a cause or not, he's very clear about his objective is clear. History will judge him on that. But the other people we have here, that are being used as by politicians, we don't want such people. If they do that, they even sabotage the struggle.
And that is right. And you contrast that with what we're seeing here in the U.S., Sekou. What we saw, in the U.S. of all the protests that passed, these are community organizers.
Yes.
Black Lives Matter is an organization that is advocating for the rights of Blacks. They are not political actors. They are into the communities. And when that happens, the protest can be spontaneous. They come in the street and they protest, they pick up their placards, and when they are, even their messages clear. Stop killing us. Black Lives Matter. These are the messages that we hear. They're not giving out anti-government messages. No, they have an issue to protect the rights of Black people in this country. That is their goal. Stop killing us. Stop killing us. And that is their message. They are not saying the government is this, the government is that. No, that's not what they're saying. In fact, they are calling on the government to step in to protect the life of Blacks, to hold the police accountable. These are the things that they are saying. But if you go to our country, you go to other places, protests being politicized, and these are the things that happen. That is why protests continue to fail in Liberia. We have to learn from Gandhi. We have to learn from Martin Luther King. The protests have to be a nationalistic idea. So to the people, let the people buy it. Involve civil society. Let it be a nationalistic issue. Don't use it to score political points. The speakers, the messengers must be community people, must be people who are civil society actors and not political actors. No, Martin Luther King was not a political actor. He came from the church. He was a church leader. So these are the lessons that we have learned.
Those who are politicians, put on your politician coat and tie and you go on the playing field and have your debate. You go on the playing field and exchange your blow in the political arena. But when it comes to civil society issue, allow people who are neutral to fight for the people. Because the protest is not just against the current administration. It's about all politicians, how your policies are being implemented, how it affects the lives of people in the short term and in the long term. That's what the protest is about, because the state will continue. The government will go, another political party will come, but the issues will remain. The poverty will be there, the corruption will be there, the oppression will be there, the same police will be there protecting you. So this issue here is not about a political party. It's about the state to reform itself, to self-criticize, to look inward and say, the way we are running the governance is not right. We need to change certain things. We need to evolve. So this is what civil society do. We want a society to evolve into a better system, so that even the new government that is coming will be built upon that new system. So we don't want politicians in protest. Let people who are neutral, who are clear-cut agenda, come on, and they must have a moral standing. You cannot be a guy who have corrupt case pending in a court, then you say we should rally around you to go protest against 16 billion. Man, we cannot do that.
You can be serious. All right, we'll roll in some advertisement here. Here, I focus on Liberia. Every Friday is our literary hour. John Jackie Sayer and Dr. K. Moses Nangbe for the literary hour here at Focus on Liberia. So they will be on this Friday, June 4th at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Why would they be talking? Weton Sangawulo. I like that one. Weton Sangawulo. He's a writer, he's a politician, and they will be looking at some of his works, his literary works, and they will be discussing that. Also here at Focus on Liberia this Thursday, we have a program called Tough Talking Thursday, and they will be discussing tribal politics in Liberia, political pluralization, association based on ethnic group, context, religion, socio-economic class, causes, effect, and solution. You do not want to miss it with Dennis Jai as the host. Today, later this evening, Focus on Liberia has been on a series in its continuation to contribute to providing the necessary awareness in the fight against COVID-19. Dennis will be here. His co-host is Pastor Patient Blair Atto. You do not want to miss it as they provide detailed explanation, detailed education on the COVID-19, the vaccines, and all the 9 years. You do not want to miss it. And still, Focus on Liberia is live on the radio in Liberia, and that is the schedule. Well, at this time, we are coming to the end of our broadcast here. I will now bring in Sekou Caleb for his closing statement on the topic that we discussed, peaceful protest, the power of the people after election. Sekou?
Yes. So what we want to tell people, after election, you still matter. The people that you elected are not kings and queens. They are civil servants, they are public servants that must be held accountable. And these institutions that are being built to protect the state and the interest of everybody, if they are not working accordingly, we should register our disagreement. But it must be peaceful. Peaceful protest is a very, very powerful weapon. It's a weapon that does not have bullet, it doesn't kill, but it's capable of transforming a society for good. It's capable of changing the moral fiber of the society. It's capable of changing the political philosophy. It's capable of changing the law. The United States that we all know today as a bastion of democracy was not always so. Women did not vote at a certain point in America. At a certain point, only white men could vote. Black people could not vote. Women could not vote. It took strong men without bullet. They stood on the street and they had clear-cut objective and agenda for social justice, and they achieved that. And eventually today, women can vote. You think that it has always been so? No, it has never been like that. The women have rights today. It was not so some thousand years, a few hundred years ago. So we have to look at our society and critique our system. We should not be supporting people based on ethnic, religion, or political party. And by so doing, we commit suicide. We destroy our own society. We have to look inward. Even if I love the government, I should be able to be objective. When I see something that goes against the good of the entire society, I should join the protest. Protest does not mean you are anti-government. It even means that you are pro-government, but you are pro-society or country first. You put country first before party. You put country first before your selfish interest. If we all can do that, we can reduce corruption. We can chase out bad politicians. We can change leaders without a lamp. We should not follow these politicians who are calling out to join them in their riots so they can replace their colleagues. That's all they want. But we should have our own peaceful protest and say we want fundamental change. We want transparency. We want accountability. We want the country resources to benefit all of us. Social justice. Okay, we don't have government. We are not benefiting nothing. The essence of government is make all of us to strive economically, distribute prosperity. So if that's not happening, we should hold them accountable. We shouldn't be protecting evil people. If we do that, we do it at the detriment of ourselves and our society. Peaceful protest is the way in the 21st century. Not taking on guns and bullets and going in the bush. That's anarchy. We should not go to that route. Anytime you do it, the society or the country go backward. Our civil war that we had, we thought we had a revolution in 1980. See where it has gotten us. So we don't want that kind of revolution anymore. We want a constructive revolution, a cultural revolution, social revolution, and that should be done with peaceful protest.
Sekou, thank you so very much. On that note, folks, this is how we will come to the end of the broadcast here at Focus on Liberia. You want my closing? Do you? We discussed the topic, peaceful protest, the power of the people after election. What is protest? Protest is when you say, this is wrong, this is against my will, this is against my interest, this is suppressive, this is oppressive, this is not in the interest of the country, or this is not the right thing to do. When you say that with your mouth, when you stand up to say it, when you raise a placard to say it, that is peaceful protest. Now, people think that when you are part of the government, you can't protest. That is wrong, because when you are married, you love your wife, you love your husband. You protest peacefully, right? When the woman says, I am not cooking because of the way you treated me, she is protesting peacefully. So you who elected the government told you, I will do this, I will do this, I will do that. You say, you sure? The person say yes. Say, okay, then do it. And the person is not doing it. You are the right person to protest. That's why a husband will protest against his wife by saying, I'm not eating your food. Or a woman will say, I'm not cooking. They love each other, but they are making a statement that you are not behaving well, and I need to tell you that in a non-violent action. But today, you're part of the government, you can't join a peaceful protest to correct the government. You are the one helping to bury your government that you claim to love, because you are not telling your government, this is why you're doing wrong, and I don't like it. I who elected you, I want you to correct it. You are not doing it. You think when you're doing it, you are not party discipline. You think when you do it, you are not nationalistic. That is a big black lie. Protest is good, especially when it's peaceful. That is why Martin Luther King and Gandhi left with us. Please protest, do it peacefully, show your love for your country. On that note, folks, this is how we come to this edition of Roundtable Africa here, Focus on Liberia. See you next Wednesday for another interesting topic. Bye-bye.
We are Liberians.